Hello everyone and welcome. This is Caio Szymanski from Brazil. I'm meditation teacher and independent researcher around the subjects of technology apply into the study of meditation, pragmatic, Buddhism, and several types of lenses on how to study body, mind, world, awareness. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Kevin Schoeninger, meditation teacher and author of Light Body Activation, How to Embody the Light That You Are. Kevin's work is the result of several decades of contemplative practice and teaching. His approach brings together embodied awareness, interoception, breathing practice, qigong, subtle energy meditation, and direct exploration of awareness itself. In his book, he presents a practical path that begins with sense the body more deeply and gradually moves toward questions about inner light, consciousness, objectless awareness, and what he calls the source of all. As a meditation teacher myself, I'm especially interested in exploring how these ideas can be understood in a pragmatic way through direct experience, practice, and careful investigation.
Hello, Kevin. How are you?
Good, Kyle. It's great to be on with you.
Yeah, amazing. And again, thanks for your presence. I want to talk with you today about your new book and your practice, your teachings, because I'm a huge fan. I even started in the EEG scene in Facebook, doing some. I did some classes with you and Stefan, and I remember a lot of good stuffs that, especially you, talked to me like tips to deal with data and EEG and etc. So yeah, it's pretty cool to talk with you today. And I would like to begin this interview with the central word in the title of your book, light.
Yes.
It is a powerful word, but it can also mean many different things. So my first question is, in your book, you use the word light in several different ways: physical light, biophotons, vital energy, inner sensations, and the luminosity of consciousness.
Yes.
So when you say that we are beings of light, what do you mean literally? And what do you mean as a contemplative description?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. Well, first of all, I'm using light as the fundamental substrate of our reality. So I think of light in terms of a spectrum. Okay, from on the one end, as far as we know, there's the dense, highly structured, compacted light of, say, a body. And then there are subtler and subtler forms of light, as you listed. So energy flows, which then can be experienced as flows or shining with presence with light, which then can go all the way on the far end of the spectrum to the light of awareness itself. So I really think of it as spanning the whole breadth of our experience, from what feels very physical and solid to what feels almost like nothing at all, awareness itself, which can be hard to get a grasp on what that is. But that's how I'm using light in the book, is to get us onto the idea that we are beings of light, and that light has several different dimensions to it, or a whole spectrum.
Yeah, amazing. So the idea is that in this range, this specific range, light can appear as some type of substance, and then in the later phases, there's no substance at all. That's correct?
Yes. And we'll get into more talking about phenomenology of consciousness, but I think that's a good place to start, is that we can experience light in from dense, compacted, what feels physical, to what feels like just a space of awareness that illumines all experience.
Yeah. And for someone who has never experienced inner luminosity, how would you describe in practical terms? Does it appear as warmth, tingling, spaciousness, vitality, visual brightness, or something else? How would you describe for beginners, for example?
Yeah, for beginners, well, I encourage first to approach practice in terms of those moving from gross sensation to subtle sensation, right? So you can begin with the feeling of your posture, right? That's a very physical. Is my posture slumped or is it upright? There's a feeling to uprightness in posture, right? That does something to your consciousness. Then there's feelings of relaxation versus tension, right? And then there's the sensation of the breath. So now we're starting to get a little more subtle, the breath entering and leaving the body, so the flow of the breath. And as we tune into the breath, we can start to feel the energy in the breath. So as you breathe in, you can feel an inspiration of energy. And as you tune into that energy, more in a finer and finer sense, you can feel that that energy is like a shining, a luminosity. And so that's how I approach it with people, especially when they're beginning and don't have a lot of experience with interoception, with feeling subtle sensations. Is, well, let's start with very concrete, embodied sensations, like even the feeling of pressure, of gravity, like you can feel the weight of your body in your seat, right? That's a inner sensation, but it's something that, oh yeah, I can really readily get a grasp in a felt sense of what you're talking about. I can feel that in my body.
Yeah, great. So you already bring the aspect of interoception. And I remember when I was doing some classes with you guys, and there is some guided meditation to find this parameter and learn how to work with this parameter. And of course, the body, it's really important, right? In your method, it is important to beginning with the body,
Yes.
because. So my question is, some people sometimes correlates meditation with a practice different than the reality of the body. Like there's postural yogas, for example, and then we have meditation. How do we correlate meditation and body and in relation with your own method? Why it is important to start with the body and not just with the mind or open awareness or even non-dual inquiry? So why is it important to start with the body?
Yeah, I think the body is central for a number of reasons. One, in that it is very concrete and it's a sensory experience. So when people say just try to do open awareness right from the start, the tendency will be with an untrained mind in open awareness, I'm just floating. I'm floating on, I'm following this thought, and then I'm following that thought, and then I drift off into a less conscious state, and there's no anchor, right? You're just kind of floating around. And that's not conducive to the effects we're looking for in meditation in terms of clarity and awareness and choosing how and where we place attention. So the body is really the way to enter the practice in a way that anchors it, that gives it, in a sense, something solid to focus into, and to train the mind, especially since the body is located in one place. When you place attention in one place, the body as a whole or a point within the body, then it gives you a very concrete focal point. You can say, oh, no, I'm going to focus on breathing right through my upper nasal passages, for example. I'm focused on that point and I'm feeling the sensations of air there. I can very clearly notice if I am focused there or if I'm not. It gives you a very clear anchor point. And so I think in that sense, the body provides that solid ground for the practice.
Yeah.
Energetically, it's also important to start with the body, and especially sensations in the lower body, in the legs and the feet and the abdomen, because again, it's very easy for the mind to just kind of just expand up and out and be very airy and spacey. And when you focus down into, say, feeling the weight of the body, feeling the sensation of sitting on your chair or your cushion, feeling your feet on the ground, that energetically stabilizes this energy system here, which is your body.
Yeah, great. And why some people cannot find their body? What's the problem when I try to find my body, concentrate in my body, and I cannot find my body? So what's going on in the experience of this person?
Yeah, well, I think especially these days with these little devices that we have here, which put us out into living in content that's out there, and also content that's very conceptual and visual, that we are tending to become very disembodied. So we really need a focused practice on the body and on sensing in the body to counteract that. There's such a weight on being pulled out into external sensory phenomenon and virtual reality. And so that, I think that's a pervasive problem. If you see walking down the street these days, people aren't even taking in the environment. They're walking literally. I mean, I see this everywhere I go in LA, is everybody is walking down the street and looking at their smartphone. And it completely disembodies us. And yeah, so I think that's probably these days the primary reason people aren't feeling sensations inside the body. And it may take some really tactile exercises for people to be able to feel inside the body. For example, when we start the light body meditations, I have people press their feet down into the ground. So feel that pressure down, and now very slowly let up that pressure and feel that sensation of easing pressure, right? And so you may need something very tactile, to something that's undeniable, or squeezing your palms together, just squeezing, or even rubbing. And now feel the heat, feel the sensation. And so I think it's really helpful to people to really start with a very physical activity and to tune into sensory awareness in something that's undeniable sensation, like, oh yeah, pressure. Everybody can feel if they they apply pressure. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So I think the idea it's not it's the idea it's all about lucidity, right? Because the body never I think only in coma, but even in coma, the body it keeps in an online mode. So if I start to practice meditation and I cannot find my body, it's not because that my body is not present, right? My body is always present, but I think the idea is to generate lucidity, to realize this already present, amazing object, to concentrate,
Yes.
to work with it. Yeah, amazing.
Absolutely. And you have to feel it for
Yeah,
that in a sensory way.
yeah,
And that's really the my background is very strongly in the Qigong and Taoist tradition of Tai Chi and Qigong and so on. That was my entry point into these practices. And there you're cultivating your inner felt sense as the primary focus of your meditation. And then that leads to the subtler dimensions.
yeah. Okay, so the next question is in your terminology. What is the difference between consciousness and awareness itself? Do you
Yeah.
understand awareness as a capacity generated by the brain as a fundamental dimension of reality, or as something that cannot be fully described by either of those models?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, first off, just the one thing that pops out in your question, definitely not generated by the brain. There are too many experiences that cannot be even just the basic fundamental datum of sitting here and recognizing I am aware. It just cannot be explained by an epiphenomena of chemical and electrical signals in the brain. But go back to your question, consciousness versus awareness. So a lot of times they're used synonymously. Some people interchange them, but I would make a distinction that consciousness is usually consciousness of something. So you're conscious of some content of experience. It could be a thought, an emotion, a sensation. So there's a subject who is conscious of some object. Whereas awareness is the context that includes the subject and the object. Awareness is like the space within which that interaction occurs. So, and that's generally how I would use those two phrases: consciousness when you're talking about being conscious of something, and awareness as kind of the field, so to speak, within which that perceptual experience happens.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of traditions point this aspect of the field or the base as awareness, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And you can then in meditation, we start by focusing on consciousness of. We usually start with focusing on an object and using that to bring the mind into concentration, into one-pointed concentration, into stillness. So instead of the mind bouncing from one thing to the next, one thought to another, feeling to another sensation, as we focus on some object of experience, then that brings the mind into focus, into concentration. And as the mind is quiet, that enables the background awareness to shine forth. When there's not content that we're caught up in the foreground, then it's easier to sense and feel the background. the background awareness, which is the prior condition which enables conscious experience.
Yeah. So we can say that this awareness, this field, it's not something that we construct with the progress in meditation. It's more something that we realize.
Yes.
Do you agree with this?
Yes, absolutely. And I would say we realize it as, again, going with content context, as the content quiets or calms or stabilizes, and that background context can then reveal itself. And it can reveal itself by, and I know we might talk a little bit about objectless awareness. The content can quiet by focusing on what's called objectless awareness, which is focusing on stillness. Like, feel the stillness underneath all movement, or listen to the silence underneath all sound, or feel the space within which content arises. So as we focus on those subtlest qualities, we start to get a feeling for what awareness itself is like.
Yeah, amazing. So in your own method, it is fair for us to say that you have some views. For example, awareness itself, objectless awareness, source of all, right?
Yes. Yes.
And this is all, we can say this is all the same field, but we gradually learning how to look into specific parameters of this field. And how can a practitioner recognize these distinctions between these fields without turning them into abstract concepts or even metaphysical beliefs?
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's where the primacy of interoception it comes in, is that it's very easy to conceptualize about these things, but it's very different from having a felt sense. The felt sense is present through the body, and it's we find that it's already there. It's just that we haven't been attending to it. Whereas concepts are generated in the thinking mind. And what happens through interoception is, interoception, if we want to use the brain as a map, interoception happens in parts of the brain that are pre-linguistic, that are pre-conceptual. And we start to get a felt sense for tuning into pre-conceptual experience. And that is the entry point to realizing awareness versus thinking about awareness.
Yeah. So the process itself, it's more to simplify the life, and not to make everything complex or transcendental, complex and transcendental. It's more to simplify. And here in the indigenous traditions in Brazil, they say to remember. We have to remember. They keep saying this. We have to remember, because
yes,
it's not something new or something that it was never present. That this type of vision resonates with your...
Yes, absolutely. It's like in The Lion King, remember who you are, right? It's right. It's but really that's profound in that who you are as awareness itself is the precondition for having any experience, right? You wouldn't have any experience if you weren't a being of awareness. Things might be happening, but no one would know them, and you wouldn't experience them as a subject. Awareness itself is always already there as the field within which the content of experience arises and dissolves.
Yeah. So I think this is a interesting point, because I want to bring now, I'm considering myself a Buddhist practitioner, because I really have a lot of connections with not just one tradition in Buddhism, but many traditions. And there's a battle happening between sanghas. And sometimes this battle, it's about the realization, the different tastes of the realization. For example, some Theravada practitioners loves to talk about nirodhas, cessations, or like the blackout, type of blackout experience. And Tibetans, not all Tibetans, but some like Kagyu yogis from Milarepa schools, and they love to talk about the essence of the awareness. Like,
yes,
if you investigate, you will find some parameters that some specific parameters that maintains like some luminosity that it's almost impossible to go away, to apply emptiness into some specific parameters. So there's a lot of confusions between schools. So my question is, how, I know we are not talking about Buddhism, but we are talking about awareness and flavors in awareness. How do you deal with this range? Because personally, for me, I on these days, I don't want to anymore to try to find a final view or a final solution. So I like to see everything as a range of possibilities. But how do you deal with the idea of some area we can access this cessation, this blackout, and in maybe the opposite area we can access something that it is luminous with a lot of light and expression. So how do you look, how do you work with all of this? Those flavors.
So first off, I think if someone is battling in about this, they're in their conceptual mind, and that's just very clear. So and there's volumes that are written on all of this, and so many people just get involved in the textual, linguistic distinctions, and that becomes all consuming. And what happens to the practice? It's like the practice is gone. So I think that's why it's so important. And this is where I think the Qigong and the Taoist practice agrees with the heart of the Buddhist practice, which is inquiry into present moment sensory experience, which is letting the conceptual mind recede to the background and inquiring in a felt way into the body. And as we do that, we track it with mindfulness, right? We are paying attention and we're not blacking out. if you're blacking out, I would say, what's the purpose of that? Now, there's cessation where there is a knowing of that. But blacking out and being gone or being unconscious, I would ask, what's the point of that? For me, the point of doing the practice is to be more present, more engaged, more compassionate, more kind, more loving, which comes from being here and being inspired with energy, with light, with a felt sense of connection with all of life. And to me, that's the more fruitful path of practice. And so, yeah, I think that instead of arguing over one view versus the other, let's tune into our inner sensory experience, investigate, stay very mindful. Don't let our minds sink or drift, but let our minds be very attentive and noticing. And in that precise attentiveness, the, say, deeper and deeper layers start to reveal themselves. Everything, as you pointed out, the idea of simplify, everything simplifies, because awareness itself is the ultimate simplicity. There is no inside, no outside. There is no content separate from the knower of content. It's a field of experience, and that field of experience can be tuned into and become so quiet that just that field itself is known and revealed. And as that is felt, my experience of that is that I'm a center of that field. So and that can be felt from the heart out. I think most effectively is as I center into my heart and I feel out infinitely in all directions, I feel myself as a center of the field. And there's no inside, no outside to that field. So all beings, all experiences come and go within that field. And that experience translates into life in a way that profoundly shifts how I relate to who I am, who these apparent other beings are, and versus I'm doing meditation to have an experience of going somewhere else or blacking out or having no experience at all. That's not my interest in meditation. Yeah.
No, it's a good answer, because I remember once listening to some teacher, and people was doing the same question. For example, in some traditions we have essence traditions, people who will say that there's an essence, and people who will say no, there's no essence at all. It's emptiness all the way down. And the answer from the teacher was very, very cool, because he said, like, I think we have to maintain the tension between these fields, because when we maintain this tension, we keep the investigation going on, and no one wants anymore to establish a final view and arguing and enter into conceptual mode. So for me, this is a good way to look like possibilities in human experience. And okay, talking about life, for example, outside of the cushion, outside of the practice. So it is two questions. Let's do the first one. How can we distinguish a genuinely transformative contemplative experience from an experience shaped mainly by imagination, expectation, or the desire to feel something extraordinary? What changes in everyday life show that the practice is truly maturing? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So first off, I think imagination can be used as a tool for the practice. And it's very easy to become attached to experiences, to chase an experience, and to have that become just another content, just like content on my phone might be, or just something else that I'm chasing. Transformation will show up in my relationship with life. Am I moving through life in a way where I no longer feel over-identified or overly aversive to something? Am I able to be present and open and take in all of life around me and just respond appropriately, compassionately, mindfully, skillfully? I think that's kind of the mark of the practice is has it produced that result? Has it moved me beyond attachment and aversion? Has it enabled me to have a wider view in which everything is seen as an expression of the one field? And so if everything, everyone is an expression of this one field, then I relate to all beings differently, more as if they're kin, as if they are part of me, as if there's, so I think there's a natural extension of that open, spacious, luminous clarity that is experienced as lack of tension within and lack of tension in relating to life.
Yeah, great. And the next question, following the first one, it's, so we have all of this practice, all of these traditions, and even EEG sensors, like,
Yeah.
And we definitely can work with all of this and realize a lot of aspects in relation with our own nature. But do you think the metric of perfection is possible? Because we have a lot of descriptions of, someone gets enlightenment and then it becomes perfect. And sometimes it's really perfect, like 100% perfect in all the aspects of life. And I will not lie to you. In the past, I even become really anxious about these aspects. I think I'm succeeding in meditation, but I don't feel that I am perfect at all. And of course, I think on these days I'm more mature. So the question is, do you think this idea of perfection, enlightenment, in a sense, in a full, final sense, do you think this is possible, or do you think this is a human tendency? And why do we care about this? Why do we care and work with the idea of some hardcore practitioners being perfected or perfect human beings? And can you elaborate on this? I always do the same question for all my friends and teachers because, you know, it's an important question. So please elaborate on this for us. Yeah.
Well, I think my first response to it is that always feels like a hindrance to me. Not like what does it, but I would say, okay, how does a practitioner relate to that? What does that do? Does it give them inspiration to practice, to go deeper, to explore their inner experience in more depth and more precision? Then great. If that's the way it's used. Is it used to put someone on a pedestal and be attached to them, or to put a future state on a pedestal to chase after, or to put on a headset and try to achieve a certain EEG pattern? And I would say that's a hindrance. For one thing, EEG is measuring neural correlates of experience. The brain is not generating consciousness. The brain is a filter of consciousness and or filter of awareness. And a EEG pattern, and you've done tremendous work in this area with helping people in how to read and interpret their EEG patterns. But an EEG pattern in itself, without an inner sensed experience, doesn't have a lot of meaning. You can't just look at an EEG pattern and say, oh, that's what that person is experiencing. Because, you know, elevated frontal beta gamma could be a state of extreme stress and anxiety. Or it could be an expression of a elevated, expanded awareness, just a one-pointed concentration that is so crystal clear that that's just synchronizing your whole brain. Or theta in the front of the brain could be, with mindfulness, could be a release of over-attachment and just a resting in a equanimity, right? It could be just no attachment, no aversion, just resting in equanimity and showing up in alpha theta frontally. Or it could be drifting, kind of dreamy drifting in and out of consciousness. So I think it's important to use it as a tool. It's a great tool. But is it possible to use the tool to inspire you to investigate deeper and sense more deeply, so that and then correlate, oh, here's what I'm experiencing. Oh, let me look now and see how that shows up in my brain.
Yeah.
Not to say, here's what my brain is doing. Let me try to get a certain brainwave pattern. That to me ends up being a chase and more attachment, and creates more stress in the practice, when ultimately going deeper in the practice is more letting go.
Yeah. That and you know, it was you, especially you, who teaches me this aspect of the graph without your subjective description. It's nothing. It's just colorful lines. And of course, on these days, it's even more dangerous, because we can just put the data into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will bring a lot of papers and will say, oh yeah, you are doing X and Y and you are a good meditator. And there's a lot of companies who wants to generate precise and final models. For example, in jhanas, like our company have the final algorithm to jhana. So if you had to spend 10 minutes, 10 years to learn jhanas with our own sensors, it will take just 3 months or something. So my question is,
with them giving like signals to put your brain into that state. And that is, way back when, I don't know when, there was a holosync brainwave entrainment that I tried out. And first of all, my brain just said no to it. It was like, oh, that's not giving me the depth of peace and awareness that I'm looking for in meditation practice. But it's a completely different activity than meditating. It's passive, and meditating is active. Meditating is training attention and awareness, training attention with awareness, right? It's not having my brain be stimulated into a state. Those are two completely different activities. Not that that brainwave entrainment is a bad thing, or maybe you do it and it creates more relaxation in the body or whatever, but it's not meditating. It's like they would advertise it, meditate like a monk. It's like, no, you're not meditating. Meditating is focusing attention with awareness. That's what meditating is. It's not being passively stimulated into a certain state of consciousness.
Exactly. So I agree with you, and I think it's all about metacognition in a sense, like the lucidity to manage our states and emotions and the whole sensorial field and the felt sensation of the sensorial field. And we are on these days, we are really lacking metacognition, right? Because of the smartphones and other things. And it's interesting how companies wants to offer on artificial metacognition, because the neurofeedback sometimes sounds like or if the practitioner have a proper view, he will use the neurofeedback as just another tool, like an extra metacognition. But sometimes there's a danger in using the neurofeedback as the metacognition itself. So I forget my metacognition because the machine will talk, will send the feedback and will train my mind. And so, it's interesting. So my question for you with the EEG is, what did the sensors truly actually teach you? Because I know you're not anymore, right? Like maybe sometimes using the sensors, but
I usually don't. But yes, I'll tell you what I learned from them. So over the decades of meditating, I learned various techniques and various states. And when I put on the headset, the Muse first, what it enabled me to do was to track the when I'm getting feedback. It's like, okay, let me shift into the state that I know, one of these states that I know, and then see how that relates to the feedback. Okay, so I found actually some states. So in Muse, you get birds or you get storm. At least that's the way it was when when I was doing it. So some of the states that I learned, which were profound meditative states of expansion and elevation of consciousness, registered as storm, right? And then other states that I learned would give me the bird song. It's like, okay. But the bias of the Muse is like birds good, storm bad, right? So now I'm trying to get birds. I'm trying to avoid storm. But really, storm could be wandering mind. It could be intense concentration, or really expanded ecstatic state. So I learned what the Muse was asking for, right? And then I'm like, okay, well, I can do that, right? And I could practice doing that, and it helps me get better at that particular thing. But that's not the scope of meditation. That's not the scope of states of consciousness. But it's really good at training my attention very precisely to do that. And but there's more. And I don't want to be locked in to thinking, oh, that is meditation and these other states of consciousness are not. Or
yeah, I agree.
And then it helped me with interoception of that state too. It was like, okay, because all right, when I focus in just this way and feel this in my body, birds are singing. So when used in that way, then it gets me real better at interoception. It's like, okay, what do I need to do in my inner felt experience with attention and awareness to hear the birds? Okay. So it did enhance interoception when used in that way.
And do you think for new Muse users, of course, they had to test the bird algorithm and play, right? But another thing that I learned in Heart Mind Alchemy group, Holly, you, and other practitioners, is that the raw data measurement, the passive measurement, it can be better sometimes to use hardware and not having feedbacks, just later after the session.
Look, yeah.
Do you agree with this?
Yeah, I think the value in that is that it keeps you very involved in your inner sensory state, and without that pursuit of the birdsong. And then if you did a session with Muse, and then before you looked at the graph, you described your inner experience. And even better, if you, one thing that I did was I would have a timer, and I would switch focal points or switch the way I was attending. So, for example, maybe the first 5 minutes, I'm focused on breathing and feeling the sensations here. And then I'd have a timer, and then I'd shift to feeling love in my heart, right? And then do that for 5 minutes. And then I would shift to lower dantian breathing, right? Lower abdominal breathing, 5 minutes. And then I'd shift to, let me feel the line of my central channel from perineum to crown. Do that for 5 minutes. Now let me breathe along that line. And now finally, let me let go of that and feel awareness itself, this vast, open, content-free field. Do that for 5 minutes. And then I would so I had these segments.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, I'd say, okay, in this segment, I was feeling this, and this, I was feeling this, and this, I was feeling this. And then I'd take my Muse graph with Mind Monitor, and I'd say, okay, how does all these segments, how do they line up with my graph? Right. And that taught me a tremendous amount about what these different focal points and ways of attending, how they were affecting my brain waves and my felt state, more importantly. And that helped me refine, because I said, oh, well, this pattern, this looks like, alpha over theta over beta. Okay. And this one looks like this, and this one looks like that. Now, as I do I'll do the same practice again and again and again, I could refine each of those different states of awareness by looking at, oh, now it's more defined. Now it's more stable. So it was a great tool to do that. And at a certain point, the interoception, the felt sense of that, is so known, so stable, that it's like I would just get the same graphs all the time, and I would have 30 graphs in a row that were pretty much showing me the same thing. I was like, okay, now that's embodied. I have that inner knowing, that inner felt sense. So now the EEG is not as helpful to my practice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It sounds like mastering, in some sense, the limits of the hardware, because this specific aspect that we are talking, it's a curious thing, because we have examples in the community of some of people mastering the algorithms of the sensors, bringing the same graph with the same pattern. When I say same, not the same.
More or less.
More or less. Yes, correct. So, and we both know that in the future we will have more hardwares, more gadgets, more devices, even with AI. And of course, we will have the regular users. But what is curious to me, that's why I entered really deeply into this community, we have an opportunity to master the hardware, the range within the hardware.
Yes.
But that's not the same thing as mastering meditation. Or do you think when a practitioner reach the limit of the hardware, it's a proof that he mastered some aspect? Because I saw in the past, in some past posts in Heart Mind Alchemy, again, battles and arguing, people arguing.
Right.
I can master this, I can show you this.
Right.
So what's your opinion, this correlation, mastering a hardware, like mastering a video game, right? And mastering meditation. Meditation itself.
Yeah, so I think there's mastering the game that the hardware is asking you to play.
Right.
There's mastering the states of awareness, so to speak. And then there's the transformation of consciousness, which to me, that's all that really matters. It doesn't matter if I can demonstrate such and such EEG. What matters, as we talked about previously, is the practice that I'm doing transforming my felt sense of who I am, my connectedness with all of life, and giving me an easeful, flowing, interactive, loving, compassionate way of being. And that, so chasing states and even mastering states doesn't necessarily do that. And so I would just step back, like with a metacognition, and say, well, what's the end game on this? And is what I'm doing supporting that? And if so, then great. If I'm finding I'm getting more attached to my achievements or to trying to be this perfect being, then I'd say perhaps a hindrance.
Yeah. So, for people who will watch this interview, Kevin is, I put some data. I put data from him in my book. So we have some examples from Kevin and other practitioners. Really, really interesting stuff. But going into the end of the interview now, let's just some quick questions about the book. For example, how many books do you release in your journey? It's 2 books or 3 books?
Overall, I've written 5 books.
5 books. Yeah.
But the 3 that are most appropriate to this discussion are Clear, Quiet Mind, Raising Our Vibration, and the new book, Light Body Activation, which is that one. And so this new book has 3 parts. The first part is my journey with all these practices from 1984, when I began, until now. Part 2 is a look at science and culture and traditions which support this practice. So, we're making a statement, we're beings of light. You could be like, that I've heard that esoteric nonsense before. It's like that's meaningful. What do you mean? I'm a hard physical body. I'm not being of light. And so in part 2, I go through that in terms of scientifically how we actually are, as physics is showing, and even deep quantum biology and so on, that we are actually structured light and light flows, and that biophoton signaling is a primary process of communication between all the cells in our body. So to say that we are beings of light, that's not just some esoteric statement. There's actually measured science that correlates with that. And then I talk about why we don't experience that because of our materialist consumer bias. And then I talk about light traditions throughout history that talk about the light body. So this isn't just some new age thing. This is something that goes back thousands of years. There's a tradition of the light body. So that's part 2, science, culture, and traditions to support the practice. And then part 3 is practical. It goes through 12 keys to experiencing this, experiencing yourself as a being of energy, of light, of awareness. And so there's 12 separate keys, and each has a practice associated with it. Finally, to culminate in a practice which puts it all together called light body activation meditation. And then I put all those meditations up for free on the Insight Timer app. So anyone who wants a guidance into either any of the practices of the 12 keys or the whole light body activation practice, there's guidance for free on Insight Timer. Yeah,
amazing. So if someone wants to buy your book, where did they find it's on Amazon? Can you? Yeah.
So right now it's on Amazon in hardcover and also in Kindle. Yeah. So it's available now. It's gradually rolling out in more and more markets. I don't know exactly how Amazon does that, but that's where it is. and I have had people purchase it in at least in Canada and the UK and the US, and then we're working on, or the publisher is working on an audio version. So that's in the works. We'll see. So far, I haven't been that pleased with that, but we'll see how it all works out.
Great. And I think the last thing is, if someone wants to work with you, and do you offer regular sessions in group, private sessions? Yeah.
Yeah. So I do offer weekly guided meditation groups, and we have a Thursday evening. It's called ROV, Raising Our Vibration Meditation Book Club. And there we feature a book for a period of time. I read from the book, and then we do a meditation practice based on the book. And starting on June 18th, we'll be using light body activation as the book for 12 weeks. We'll go through part 3, basically, of the book together as a group. And then I also, on the first and third Saturday of each month, do Raising Our Vibration meditation, again online, open to all, for free, and that's on Enlightened World Network. And people can get links to both of those on the Raising Our Vibration community Facebook page.
Yeah, amazing. I will put all the links in the description. So I'm gonna put the interview on YouTube, and everyone can find you, find your book. And again, thanks a lot for your presence and the amazing conversation. I conclude,
Thank you.
Yeah, I conclude saying that, first, you are a hero to me, but in a EEG sense, like, yeah, I have a hero, and his name is Kevin. He's like a master in the stuff. But then later, talking with you, knowing much more about your work, I can easily say that you have a really honest and robust work around meditation and spiritual practice in general. So it's on these days, it's not just anymore about EEG, it's about a more integral approach. And I think everybody can definitely check your material to learn with you, because you have a precise language, a precise vision around this, all of this, and I thank you again for all your work, your helping with me. So that's it, my friend. Thanks a lot. We can continue our conversation later in the groups, or even in a private sense. But yeah, keep the good work happening. I will definitely check your guided meditation on Insight Timer. And I don't know if it's possible, but I remember to talk with you about dropping gamma. I know how to rise gamma.
Yeah.
But I have some periods that I started to find dropping gammas. And the felt sense was to reach a bottom.
Yes.
And a felt sense that I was reaching home. I'm home now. But in the dropping gamma, there's a sense of, this is my real home. So for us to finish, there's a specific meditation in your method to work with this, or can you elaborate on this to complete?
Yeah, so the felt sense of that is completely letting go. And I think the sense of dropping is a great way, because gamma feels elevated and expanded. So if you drop down and back, drop down and back, and let go, and feel as if, first of all, you're doing nothing. There's just that source of awareness that you're letting go into your home. Ineffable. No qualities, no descriptions. Just letting go into that and feeling home. Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, Kevin. Nice
Thank you,
rest.
Kyle. And I also want to say
Uh.
to you, thank you for all your profound work. I mean, you're a profound practitioner. I love the teaching you do with EEG, and you and Stefan, the app that you have. I mean, that you're really taking it to a whole nother level of EEG beyond what I've investigated. So thank you for all you're doing.
Yeah, thanks a lot, my friend. It's a good group, Heart Mind, a lot of good practitioners and researchers. And yeah, amazing. So thanks a lot for everything. Have a nice of the week, and we continue our conversation later. Bye-bye, my friend. Thanks a lot.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Take care.
Take care.